All right. Welcome back to another episode of BG Perform Opinion, BG Perform Talks. I don't know. I need a better name for this. Maybe I should focus on that after I make this episode. But I just find people's opinions on X, or formerly known as Twitter, and I interject with my opinion, my professional opinion on anything fitness, strength conditioning, performance, health, fitness, information basis, something along the lines of that. And yeah, I do that as often as I can. I try to find information that I think is good, that I agree with, I disagree with, and I put it on here and show you guys and talk about it. So, but before that, if you want to join in and learn more about my coaching, my methods, everything that I do as a coach, reach out to me. I just started and launched a program called the Coach Connect, which is a coaching program for those who really, what I call, want to influence the highest standard of coaching. And it's a module based system that we created, taking you through week by week calls, going through each week, talking about each module in depth. There's homework, there's things you take on your own and kind of help and learn to grow your career. Not from a financial standpoint. Obviously, you're going to grow from a financial standpoint, but I don't talk about, like, I'm not a money guru or anything like that. I just want to talk about people who really love coaching and want to improve their craft. And obviously, just bit my lip. Sorry. If you want to work with me online or in person, you can reach out. www.bgperform.com/training, or you can reach out on Instagram at bgperform_. So let's dive into this. We're going to share the screen here. So first things first, this was a tweet from Pat Basil, who I think I've retweeted a couple of his things, but you don't need power cleans to become explosive. I took them out years ago and our program only improved. He wrote, here's a guide, but I agree with this. You don't need power cleans to become explosive. I think a lot of people mistake power cleans, snatches, and things like that for speed, because at the highest level, yes, like they can be very explosive, but there's so much that goes into actually learning those things that I don't think they're necessarily worth investing the time into for a lot of people, especially if someone's just not interested. I think these are forced onto a lot of people because they're seen as explosive movements, but if you're not good enough at them, then you're not actually going to get the benefits of them, and they can be replaced by other things, right? Instead of doing power cleans or regular cleans, we can do trap bar jumps, right? So we're basically taking a deadlift, trap bar deadlift, and we're doing like a jumping pattern with it at the end. We can do regular jumps. We can do trap bar high pulls, things like that, things that are taking all the skill components out that we don't really have to spend as much time teaching, and we can just kind of get to it. Another thing behind the over the head med ball tosses, like we're tossing it backwards at max effort. Those are all things where we can still meet that requirement of triple extension without having to learn all the, precursors or prereqs to a power clean. Ben Griffin tweets, it's important to understand why you're doing an exercise. With slant board squats, we're trying to target the quads, so we want more knee bend and less hip bend. The challenge is to continue to let the knees go forward and not bend any more from the hips as the weight goes up. This is definitely an important aspect of training, and I think the biggest thing is intent, is what he's trying to kind of hint at here. You want to know the intent behind an exercise, right? And I think a lot of times people see things like this and they do it just because they see it, and they have no intention or reason behind what exactly it is they're trying to achieve with the movement. And the reason why you want to know is because you want to know what's right and what's wrong, and what the reason behind it is, right? We wouldn't want to do a slant board squat and then see her hips at this point here. Let me see, right here, where the knees are kind of like behind us a little bit and the hips are high, because essentially you're just doing a deadlift, right? We want to use the slant board to elicit a little bit more tension on the quad, a little bit more forward drive with the knee. And we want to make sure that we're using this to take away those limiting factors that might take away us getting through that deep range of motion. So I like this idea and I like this tweet. This was something I tweeted. I saw something where this AI, I guess, bot, Claude, which is kind of like the main competitor to ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure. It says, turn Claude into the ultimate personal trainer, full guide. And I tweeted, let's not forget the real reason this will never be a real sustainable thing. And it's because people still have to do the work. I don't think the problem is I don't think the information is the problem. It never has been. It never will be. I think it's people actually doing it, right? And I don't think an AI is going to get someone to do the work. It's just going to tell them what they need to do, and they're still not going to do it. So I think the biggest difference and why I think coaching is safe inside of, this whole AI revolution is because I think it's underestimated how many people actually train with somebody just because they want to, have someone there to guide them, someone there to talk to, someone there to push them, right? I think fitness is simple. And I think for the most part, you don't need a lot of things that go on inside of fitness. But again, I've had plenty of experiences where clients were more than capable to work out on their own, but they enjoy working out with me or working out with someone that they know, having that accountability. Because again, it's not the information. I think everybody knows the information at this point, and it's very easy to find. And AI makes that super simple as well. But getting there and actually doing the work, the AI is not going to do it for you. So that's the reason why this will never be successful. It'll be big, and people will spend money on it because they're going to look at the cost of a $20 to $50 subscription to ChatGPT or Claude, and as opposed to what I charge per hour, right? And they're gonna be like, well, that's I could save so much money. And it's like, cool, you're gonna save so much money. The percent of people that will actually get what they need out of that $50 investment is gonna be so low. And I think it's just, at the end of the day, coaching's coaching, and you can't really replace it. And yeah, that's it. So that's the real reason it's not gonna work. Another one from Pat Basil, programming tip: run the same set rep scheme, just change the variation every 4 to 6 weeks. This is something I do very often. I usually like to go week 1 is like setting a heavy set for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Then I usually like to do the same weight across for that. So we're just basically overloading with, instead of changing the weight, we're just doing more sets and reps at that weight. Then the week after that, I usually add a set. And then the week after that, I add more reps. And right here, essentially what he's doing is, one variation, which is 3x8, 3x10, 3x12, 3x15, which is essentially increasing the reps each week, which is more load, right? And then what he's saying in a block would be like a set of 4 weeks for most people. Sometimes it's 6 weeks, just depends on who you're working with. Usually it's 4 weeks for me. With some things I keep the same, just really dependent on the individual. But then you're changing the movement from a floor press to incline bench, single arm dumbbell bench, and then alternating dumbbell incline bench. And he's saying this is 14 weeks of training, or 16 weeks of training, which is basically 4 months. And this is a simple way to do it. It can work this way. I think, the only thing I disagree with here is when you're increasing the weight, or the reps, you're not going to be able to increase the weight. And I think weight is something that people need. I'm sure he doesn't run this type of, programming for everybody. This is more just like a simple variation to do. But yeah. So this is, I guess he could be a fitness guy, but he owns a company that I really like called Represent. It's a clothing company, George Heaton. And he had a tweet. It says, some of my favorite quotes from this year's mission to build the best brand in the world. If you compete on price, you'll always lose to someone more desperate than you. There will be a day where you can no longer do this, and today is not that day. The opposite of success is mediocrity, not failure. They can copy absolutely everything we do, but they are still not us and never will be. If you avoid wanting to be challenged physically, you will be challenged physically. Same applies to mentally. Did I read that right? If you avoid wanting to be... Oh, yeah. Okay. Success is a game of who has the most patience, and then a rolling tide lifts all ships. A rough sea finds who's best. I think this really applies to everything that has to do with business, whether you're a personal trainer, whatever your career might be. But I think a couple of these specifically, like if you compete on price, you'll always lose to someone who's more desperate than you. I think in training, one of the biggest problems are those who are willing to dip their price down and almost gives the what we do, or gives my craft or, my career a bad name. And I think it makes it look really bad when individuals who actually want to make this a career charge what they're worth, really. And it kind of creates this middle ground that's very, it's hard for trainers, right? I think this is another one as well. They can copy absolutely everything we do, but they are still not us and never will be. And I think this is kind of goes back to this concept with like AI. It's like, you can get all the information you want, but like you actually have to use it. And I think people can copy what's working, but they're not going to be the company or the person or the trainer or whatever who are doing it in real time. And I think it's really easy to kind of show that you act like you can, but then when it actually comes down to doing it, you're not going to be able to replicate that. And I think that's really important to understand. If you avoid wanting to be challenged physically, you will be challenged physically. Same applies to mentally. I think physical challenge is necessary, especially if you're a trainer. And I think you need to put yourself out there. You need to physically train yourself. You need to put yourself into, I wouldn't say harm's way, but like put yourself into the fire and make sure you're challenging yourself on a daily basis, because that's what's going to actually, get you better and allow you to provide a better experience to your client. So, and the last one that I think is really important is success is a game of who has the most patience. And I think training is that. It's like, how long are you willing to delay gratification? How long are you willing to put off, quote unquote success to then, reap the rewards down the line when it's time. And I think you have to kind of plant the seeds early on. You have to let it grow, and then you have to kind of go and get everything and go from there. So I think it's important. What do we got left? How many? We got a decent amount today. Okay, so I'll do a couple more here. This is from Gary D. Filippo. Michael was tired of taking physical abuse from the Detroit Pistons and wanted to start a strength conditioning program. He said he tried out for 30 days, and 30 days turned into 15 years. How the weight room helped Michael Jordan become the GOAT. I think this is probably one of the best things from this era was that, again, basketball is one of those sports that a lot of guys weren't really lifting properly, or they weren't lifting consistently, at least. And when Jordan made this jump and showed the difference he did when he put some muscle on, when he put some size on, when he put, all this stuff, and kind of like, I wouldn't say made it mainstream, because obviously he didn't, but like in the basketball world, like this is what you need as a player. This is what builds resilience. This is what gets you deeper into your career. And we've obviously progressed so much from this, and we've learned and grown and have created so much better, structure and habits and adaptation. But there's something to just be said about getting some heavy weight on your body, lifting, creating adaptation, and just letting your skills shine through. And I think that's really important. So let's see, which ones do I want to do last? This one I disagree with. Oh, wait. Maybe it wasn't this one. There's a one on here. This one. Yeah. So I'll do one more that I agree with, and then we'll do a couple more. So, conditioning. This is from Julian Lacosto. It says conditioning, ending a session with your aerobic work is ideal. Since you're already fatigued, this won't interfere with speed, power, or strength work. You can train it with appropriate intent. Yeah, and I think you always want to do conditioning either on its own or at the end of a session, especially if it's something aerobic based, because you're able to push it. It's a very low skill, especially if it's cyclical like this. Like you're just on the bike, and it's cyclical, meaning it's the same thing over and over again. You're not really changing or switching anything. You're just on the bike doing what you got to do, hitting a certain pace. You want to keep that at the end, because it's going to be a simple, like, you don't need your mind for it, really. It's just one of those things you just do, and you if there's a pace or something you have to complete along with it, you stick with the pace, you do what you got to do. And like he kind of states here, since you're already in a fatigue state and it won't interfere with your speed, power, or strength work, right? You don't want to do something like this at the beginning, because this can be very fatiguing on the lungs. It can be very fatiguing on the central nervous system. And then, go into a lift for the rest of the day when you're already fatigued. You want to do this at the end, because you're kind of already, lifting is a form of aerobic training in a way. It's not directly aerobic training, but it works that system already. So it's kind of priming us for this. And then as we get towards the end, the conditioning becomes a very, simple fit and at the end there. All right. So last thing we got here, Zach Goodman, strength training for athletes. He said, lift heavy 85% plus or 0.3 to 0.6 meters per second speed. Lift fast, fix muscular deficiencies, rest 4 to 5 minutes between working sets, and track progress. Don't use ultra slow tempos. I disagree with that. Be scared of heavy weight. use short rest periods, or do random TikTok workouts. Yeah, the rest of that I agree with. But I think using ultra slow tempos is what helps early on to build the foundation to fix muscular deficiencies, right? I think ultra slow tempos help us in finding the cracks in the foundation. And I think the more time under tension, the more work we can get done, the more adaptation we can create, and that is what kind of sets the stage for a lot of this stuff. And the way that I kind of go about it is, we want to learn coordination early on, right? We have to learn to move our body through space, and we can't do that with 2 reps. We have to do that through continuously finding ourselves under load through ranges of motion, and do that as often as possible. And early on in the off season, and early on in someone's lifting career, getting them under tempos that allows them to be under load for longer periods of time allows them to learn the range of motion, train the muscle a little bit more efficiently, build muscular endurance, which then allows them to get to a point where they can lift heavy and fast, fix muscular deficiencies, track their progress a little bit better because they can understand their body a little bit more. So ultra slow tempos might not be something, we use all the time, but they're definitely useful and helping us be able to do the things that I agree with up here that he said, that actually help us get better. So I think that's it today. Just a couple things. I'm going to share more next week, and there's a couple more that I think are going to take me a little bit longer to talk about, which I'll talk about next week. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.